Okay, let's keep going on the debate coverage, but we're going to now bring in our beasts of the week. John Lovett and John Favreau, the two Johns of Pod Save America, and they're joining us for our very own spin room.
I just want to thank you so much for both being here. I know your time is so precious. This is our little spin room thing that we're doing. Did you enjoy the debate last night? What were your initial thoughts? Enjoy. I say that with quotes around it.
Honestly, my initial thought was, kind of boring. But in a good way, because it's like we were saying this on Pod Save America, that it felt like a debate on a timeline where Donald Trump no longer exists, or at least existed in the distant past. And so it was just two people. Like it could have been a gubernatorial or a debate or a Senate debate. Tim Walz is talking about Minnesota. J.D. Vance is talking about random issues. It's like, it was interesting. It didn't feel like the 2024 campaign.
I thought it also looked like a debate from the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah, we're used to, in a world where Trump is a part of our politics, high highs and low lows. We watched a debate a few months ago. I would say that was a low low. Watched a debate a few weeks ago. That felt like a high high. She really kicked his ass. This was in a kind of lukewarm middle where I think J.D. Vance, this is his best kind of environment, like an opportunity to debate, like when he was in college. He's a poster at heart. He's an internet creature at heart. It's a good forum for him. He landed some punches. I thought Tim Walz had some of the best moments of the night, but is also obviously not as comfortable in that forum. So all in all, it was just sort of, I think, like a kind of boring and yet also hair-raising experience.
Yeah, I thought J.D. Vance, he put on a well-fitting normal human suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me want to move to Minnesota, I will say. Is this the end of the debates now? Are we done? Do we squeeze in one more?
I think it's probably the end. I think that Donald Trump and his campaign feel good about where they are. I think they are risk averse in that they know if they agree to one more debate, then Donald Trump could once again remind everyone why he is deranged and unfit. And it's also like the CNN debate was supposed to be the 23rd. That's the invitation for October 23rd. It's only a couple weeks. And I don't know that they're going to have time to do this. It's Donald Trump, so he's unpredictable. Anything could happen. He could decide like 3 days before the debate. He could say, yeah, let's do it. I'll see you there. So I don't know, but I would bet against it.
I wondered if he might just even debate J.D. Vance for the hell of it.
Do you think that each candidate met their minimum goal? Like, who do you think was really reached with this performance?
J.D. Vance's best moments were probably around issues that don't matter as much. The same can be said about Tim Walz's worst moments. The most important, and I think furthest reaching moment of the night was the moment where Tim Walz questioned J.D. Vance about democracy, and J.D. Vance refuses to say that Donald Trump lost the election. I think that swayed undecided voters who were watching it. I think it's the most important clip coming out of it. The Harris campaign immediately put an ad behind it to get that in front of people. And so, you have like, if you're watching a 2-hour vice presidential debate, you're pretty engaged. And you may have seen the moment where Tim Walz kind of fumbles over an answer around mischaracterizing his time in Hong Kong 30 years ago. And, maybe that seemed impactful in the moment. They said they cut off JD's microphone. But if you're just watching clips of what comes out of this debate after, I don't know that JD Vance did what he needed to do for Trump. I think JD Vance did a little bit of work to repair his image as a weird dipshit. But does that help Donald Trump win? I don't think so. I think Tim Walz did more to help Kamala Harris than JD Vance did to help Donald Trump.
Do you think that they should have asked the question about the election at the beginning? I thought it was an incredibly weird ordering of questions, and that actually you would have had a much more engaging debate. It's probably the single most important question, right? Who won the 2020 election? And if you can't agree with that, then it's going to colour the rest of the debate. So I thought it was really weird that they left it till the end.
I certainly would have enjoyed if they asked it first, but to be fair to CBS, they're a news organization. They have a bias towards what is news and what has just happened. And so I was not completely surprised that they asked about what happened in the Middle East yesterday and what's been going on in the Middle East now for several months, if not a year. So I think that's why they started with that question. I might have then in the second or third or fourth topic gone to democracy, but I don't really have a lot of quibbles with it just because the way people consume information now, share information, you had, tens of millions of people who watched the debate last night, but everyone's going to share the clips from whatever moment of the debate was a big deal. And I think that's different than the way we used to watch and consume debates, like, even 5-10 years ago.
True. The only thing I would say to push back on that is we know that foreign affairs doesn't really move the needle in a presidential debate here. So I just thought, you way to lose half your audience. I literally thought if you're trying to get people to watch this thing, the way to lose them is to start with the Middle East.
That's fair.
Yeah. I want to ask a question about just debates in general, because I'm so curious where you think that debates go from here when news organizations see themselves as needing to seem balanced. Like, why even have debates if we're just like neutralizing them, no fact checking, which is really just to please the fact averse among us?
I feel like there's two questions in there. I think one is, what is the role of moderators in the debate? How much fact checking should they do? And I actually I don't agree that having moderators who step in and do fact checking improves a debate because, look, we've been through 3. I do not think Donald Trump won that first debate or lost that second debate. I don't believe what we watched unfold last night was really that impacted by the moderators. When the candidates check each other, I think that is better for the people watching at home than when moderators step in and try to kind of adjudicate the facts on the fly. Like, look, we saw what came out of that Trump-Harris debate. I think it was incredibly fair moderating, but Donald Trump has spent weeks saying it was 3-on-1. I think a little bit of an idea has taken hold that the moderators were more unfair to him than they were to Kamala Harris. Do I think that helps people? Do you think that's good coming out of the debate? I don't. It's probably better if they seem like they're stepping back and letting the candidates fight it out, and then we rely on our candidate to fact check Donald Trump or the Republican in real time. What is the purpose of a debate, right? Like, is this the best way to decide between two human beings? Quick recall, scoring points, making viral moments? Like, no, of course not. This is a stupid way to choose somebody to run Medicare and the military, like incredibly stupid. But if that's what we're going to do, I don't know that the moderators stepping in more is like a way to make it better.
I think I just like it because I personally find it satisfying.
Yeah, no, right. I get it. I agree. But that moment, like JD Vance, I think enjoyed his microphone being shut off. I think liberals on Twitter and JD Vance enjoyed the microphones being turned off the most. And I think that probably says something about how we watch debates versus how undecided or less engaged people watch a debate.
Right.
I did think JD Vance looked as if he was really enjoying himself. Whereas you could tell that this is not Tim Walz's natural environment. He's obviously great in donut shops and he's great at big rallies, but he's not great in that environment.
JD Vance was like born to be a debater. He lies easily, he is shameless, and he's like a poster. He likes to post, he's like a blogger.
Yeah.
And he has been, since he wrote Hillbilly Elegy, he has been talking to media. He's very well versed in doing interviews and sparring with reporters, sparring with opponents. And so I was not surprised that he did well and knew that he was going to have to, be on his best behavior. Tim Walz said something, it was in a CNN story before the debate where he said, I'm a teacher and he's like, I teach my students to answer the question. And as a teacher, you learn to answer the question. And that's not really what a debate is. It's more of a performance, which reminded me of what Barack Obama would always say about debates and complain about when we were prepping him for a debate. And he wasn't a great debater either, just because that's not his strength, because there's an artifice to debating and television debating that I think you really have to you really have to be cut out for. And
Yeah.
JD Vance is, and I kind of figured Tim Walz wasn't.
It's so funny you should mention Barack Obama, because his first debate with Mitt Romney was so shocking for people because they'd never seen him in an environment like that where he didn't appear to be completely in control. And then obviously the second debate was much better, but that was a shocking debate, the first one. He just seemed very tired and unable to play that game. As you say, it's a performance.
Yeah, he just didn't want to be there. He had been president for 4 years. And when you're president for 4 years, you're not used to being challenged all the time on a debate stage like that. But also, he thought, they're going to ask questions about policy and I'm just going to give answers.
I also, though, I will say, like, we're a little bit inured to just how much worse and dumber debates have gotten in like the Donald Trump era. You go back and look, like, people were, after that first Biden-Trump debate, people were like, well, Reagan had a bad night in 1984. Then you go watch the Reagan debate, he's like Cicero. I bet if you go look at, if you go back to that terrible Obama debate from 2012, I bet it. I did. It's fucking fine.
Oh no, I watched it. I watched it either before the Biden debate or before the Harris debate, and that first answer, I was still screaming.
Yeah,
at the
it's
screen.
It's bad. Yeah, obviously not his best, but I think it gets held up a little too high.
So you just mentioned Biden. What does he do for the rest of the campaign now? What should he be doing? Should he just sit it out? I mean, what does the next month hold, do you think, for us?
I think he should be president, and he's got plenty on his plate between the Middle East, and now we have a dock workers strike and everything else that's going on in the country. And I think the best thing he can do for Kamala Harris and for the country and for the party is to just continue being president, support her where he can. But I don't imagine that Joe Biden, like, barnstorming the country with Kamala Harris or without her, is necessarily going to help the campaign.
I don't think Joe Biden could barnstorm at this point.
No, I just think, like, you have him, make sure there's not any kind of like runners or rugs that could easily catch between
Oh God.
the bedroom and the situation room, and just have him go back and forth. I think no step in tubs,
No stairs, no slopes.
no lips on that shower, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Let's talk about podcasting a little bit, because Joanna and I are launching this big new endeavor. And of course you are just OG podcasters with an incredible partnership. Do you have any advice for us in terms of just barnstorming the world of, as we're talking about barnstorming the world of podcasting?
Yeah, what should we be doing? Should we be fighting? Should we be drinking? What should we do?
The more you can narrow the space between how the two of you would be in a conversation with no microphones on and no cameras on, and how you're going to be during your podcast, the better. It works when people think they are just hearing a conversation between friends and they're overhearing a conversation between friends. And that goes for the guests that you have on as well. I think the worst episodes we've done, or at least when we were starting to, it's when we're over-prepared, too scripted, when we have guests on, especially politicians are like this, where it sounds like they're just repeating talking points, and that just doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
And so I think you got to be as loose as possible.
Can you ever really get people off their talking points? I find it to be a very difficult mission.
It's so hard.
And you feel yourself in it and you just start sweating, but also slightly falling asleep.
You can't make someone be not a politician when they are a politician. I do think, like, this is, by the way, you see this with all kinds of public figures. I think more often than not, people can be pulled into a more honest conversation than they can be pushed into a more honest conversation. Mm-hmm. Like, you look at Donald.
What does that mean? How do we do that? How do we pull them?
If you look at, say, like Donald Trump, like, his most revealing and terrible and damning answers have tended to come in safer environments or off softball questions, as opposed to more adversarial questions. I think, like, when we've had people on and we kind of we try to, like, we're going to be tough guy and interview people, I think sometimes that leads to the worst results. But, like, if you can just sort of hang out with somebody and make them feel at ease, suddenly they feel a little bit looser and a little bit more comfortable. And maybe they go a little further because their guard's a little bit further down.
Yeah. And sometimes if you know how they're going to answer a question in advance because they have answered it before that way, and this, again, especially happens with politicians, if in your question you can sort of give them the answer that you can already recite the answer that you know they're going to give you back, then they have nowhere else to go. And then sometimes they actually say something interesting.
Right. Trick them.
If you interview them for 2 hours, also, you can wear them down. And then they just get tired and they lose track of their thoughts.
Which is our plan with you guys. Yeah, we're going to be here in 4 hours' time. We're still going to be asking. What should we be asking you?
What should we at? Now we're doing both sides of the interview?
Yeah, that's right.
I do think that, like, you know, if you listen to like Joe Rogan will have people on for hours and then one clip will go viral after. And that comes after a very long and detailed conversation, right? Like, I do think people get comfortable in those long conversations.
Yeah.
Who's the person that you just felt like was a total waste of time to have on the pod? Who would you never have back?
Oh, well, that's a long list. No, that's such an important question. And I would say one thing you learn from doing this for 8 years is, nice try.
8 years. Wow. It's 8 years. That's insane.
That's wild.
I remember you coming in when you were starting this and I was dying to invest because I knew it was going to be good. And I was telling Sam, the company I was at then when you came in, I rushed in and I said, we should absolutely invest in these guys and Crooked Media. And they said, we would never invest in a company called Crooked Media. And I went, no, it's a joke. It's a joke. And they were like, we will never invest in a company called Crooked Media. So that's my story about you guys.
We finally tricked someone. So
yeah,
no, it's very exciting what you're building. Really exciting. And who you still haven't told me who you wouldn't have back.
That's right.
Did dodge that one.
I think there's a shorter list of politicians we enjoy talking to because they are sort of less afraid of just being themselves. We interviewed each of the candidates in 2020 who was running in the Democratic nomination, and that's like a long list.
Yeah,
we think back on that, it was just like, oh, Warren and Pete and Biden, but there's like
I'm sitting here talking to Bill de Blasio for an hour.
Oh my God.
An hour you will never get back.
I spent a month with Bill de Blasio 1 hour.
Yeah.
Just started to sweat thinking about that.
Yeah, some of those folks that dropped out early, and we sat there for like 45 minutes to an hour interviewing them, and that's a lot.
I mean, like, Sam, you've done boring interviews.
Yeah.
Oh, I have. Not with you, though.
Not with us.
Not with us.
No, not with you. No. And I watched your episode of Survivor, and I thought you were excellent.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're good at it. When you're excellent.
John and the kids.
Unbelievable.
Lovett, talk us through the moment when you realized you weren't going to stay on Survivor.
Oh, well, I would say it was when Jeff Probst read my name aloud.
Okay. Oh.
I knew that I was in trouble because somebody on my tribe had a meltdown and then kind of turned on me in front of the Jeff Probst and all 18 people on the island. And so I knew I was in trouble. And once that happened, I tried everything I could to dig out of it, but I wasn't caught off guard by being voted out. I think they just were choosing between two people, one of whom was no longer a threat. And that really kind of killed me. But it was very fun. It's a very strange experience, right? Like if I told you, Joanna, open up your calendar, go to March, everybody's going to see you be embarrassed on television. That's a weird thing to put in your Google Calendar. It's like a weird thing to have. Like this is going to air and it's going to be, but like I enjoyed it and I actually have like no regrets about it. My disappointment was not going home first because of how people reacted. Actually, the reaction was really great. It was fun. I was having a good time being out there and it was like a silly, crazy thing to do. And I was glad I got to do it.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was the best gift I've ever given Jon Favreau.
Oh my God.
That's what you said.
The moment I knew things were going south was when they were all introducing themselves and Lovett's like, I used to be a speechwriter and now I host a podcast. It's called Pod Save America. Have some of you heard of it? And you hear some people just going, maybe. I think so.
They had heard of it. They had heard of
so
it.
Good. It was so good.
Show business is glorious.
Do you get paid for it? And do you get paid per how long episode you stay for? So if you stay for 4 episodes, you get paid more, or is it like Dancing with the Stars, which I think is a flat fee?
No, Dancing with the I know because I just got asked to do it and I said no to it.
You said no to Dancing with the Stars.
You get more money the longer you stay.
Oh, you do? So you're incentivized to stay.
Yes.
So John, how much did you get for it?
I would say enough for a really nice weekend getaway.
Great.
A weekend getaway in America or weekend getaway in South America or Europe?
I think it depends on the season. But not a lot.
You did get a vacation in Fiji.
I basically,
That's good.
I missed 3 dinners, but I did spend a month in Fiji. So that was really the fun. Like, I also like had this great experience of like, when you get voted out first, you're alone. And then one by one, all these people get voted out. And then you kind of hang out with them at this basically kind of like rundown resort in Fiji. And so that was really what I did. I read books, I played ping pong with people, and I had no internet, no nothing. I just literally I literally just read physical books and kind of thought about thought about my life. Thought about my choices.
I can't believe that you could spend a month without the internet.
Wild.
It was very good for me, I think.
I mean, mentally, what happened to you?
So I think like my attention span healed. It really did.
Nice.
Like it did heal. And like I was able to just sit and read. Like days felt a little bit shorter because you could just sit for a while and just read for an hour or two without feeling like you're jittery. You stop reaching for your phone. You stop missing the news. You also realize how much news you're paying attention to day that you completely forget about. And don't need to know. And don't ever need to know.
Right.
I will say though, when I turned my phone back on, like the algorithm, it seemed like TikTok thought of me as a person who had like been a junkie but got sober, and they were like a drug dealer outside of school. Like,
Wow.
Oh, you think you can stay away from this? We saved you the weirdest content for your brain till you got back. That's right. This is a story about pooping and real estate.
Wow. You thought that this spin room was a political discussion, but it was actually just cover for us to talk about your Survivor experience.
And you made me feel comfortable. And that's what happened.
That's what happens.
I have one question before we go. I know you guys were fantastic speechwriters for President Obama. Is it possible, do you think, to write a speech for President Trump?
Yeah, for sure. We have now watched Trump speeches, as I'm sure you guys have, for 9 years. I could write a Donald Trump speech in my sleep.
Absolutely.
And then take a shower afterwards.
But do you think he would be able to deliver it? I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
No. He delivered. You can tell his style now, right? He has the speech. He's got the prompters. He's reading it. Sometimes he's surprised by what he reads because he clearly hasn't read it before. And then he sort of goes off on a tangent and he does like the Trump show. And then he comes back and then he seems more bored on the prompter. He's definitely bored by the written speeches. And they try to write in his style, but
but his writers are a lot of blood and soil from his speech writing.
Well,
team.
and he's 80 years old. He's not coming up with anything new at this point.
No,
he's old. He's just playing the hits, right? He hasn't come up with new material in a while.
Okay, and if you were betting people, what would you say happens on November the 5th?
Oof, we're not.
We're not. No betting. No
Don't
betting.
take that bait.
I'd rather be us than them.
Yeah,
it's an extremely close race, but I think that in an extremely close race, energy, enthusiasm, that matters on the margins, and this is going to be a margin of error race. So
wow. All right. Thanks again. This was amazing. Oh, I thought that was so good.
They are such fun.
They are so much fun. That was great. And you know what? That actually was, I thought, great advice. We keep talking to people who give us great advice, but relating to each other as we normally relate to each other, which I do think that we do. It's something that I would not think to do or be aware of, but I think we're kind of doing it anyway.
Yeah, and I now literally waking up in the morning thinking, what does Sam think? I'm getting feedback.
Most people wake up that way, so it's understandable. Once you know me, you love me. Irresistible.
Irresistible. I loved hearing about his experience too on Survivor.
Yes. Delicious. I wish he would have stayed longer.
He should have. It would have been fun if he'd stayed longer.